What's going on, guys?
Happy Sunday. It is the 11th of April. We hope you all are super excited to join us. We'll just wait for a few people to come on here. We actually have a special guest coming on today. Look at y'all. There's a bunch of you already on. What's going on, everybody?
Appreciate you taking time away from the Masters to come hang out with us. You know, it's probably way more exciting to watch golf live, but we
Not
appreciate
today,
the
though.
sacrifice.
Yeah, so we have, right there, one sec. We have a special guest today, Alfonso Cuadra.
Yeah.
He's going to be joining us. So Alfonso has, if you guys don't know him, he has his own TV show. He's an inspirational speaker. He has his own book. He's published, and he is a multifamily real estate investor. So I'm going to jump on here and have him come on. We're going to add him in right now.
There he is. Alfonso, how are you?
Excellent, guys.
Good to see you. One second, make sure we're not a little. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. I know our introduction didn't really do you justice. We have about we have 2 people on here right now. Before we get into the nitty gritty kind of about what we want to talk about today, let's just tell everybody about who you are, what you do, for all the people who don't know who you are.
Well, if you don't know me, shame on you. or shame on me, rather. Yeah, so, I'm a serial entrepreneur, real estate investor, immigrated from El Salvador in the 80s. I came here as a refugee. Obviously, there's a lot of opportunity here. And, during the 80s, a lot of people from Central America were coming to Canada. Had some issues in school, ended up dropping out of high school at 15, ended up being homeless at 15 years old on the streets. And I had a life-changing moment when my daughter was born. I was 17 years old, and changed my life, gave me purpose, and decided to get my act together. Started a business at 17 from my locker in school, and ended up turning that business across Canada, making that business across Canada. By the time I was 21, I had locations all across Canada.
Wow.
Being an entrepreneur. And the problem was I was very much a consumer. You guys are young guys, what, when the money comes in.
100%.
Yeah, there's a lot of nice things in the world.
And I was 21 years old, and I had no financial education, is what I realized. A small correction came in the early 2000s that almost took me out. But then I started, 2001, 2002, I started reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. And I realized that the problem was that I only had one stream of income. And so back in 2001, almost 20 years ago, 20 years ago, I decided to create a secondary stream of income, which was going to be Armageddon proof. And that's why the real estate, specifically multifamily, specifically apartment buildings, and changed my life. I ended up, reducing my expenses, pouring everything I had into real estate, and of course, all my other businesses. And by the time 2008 came, and as you guys know, there was a crash in the U.S., but Canada, it was a correction for sure. But what was really interesting about Canada back in 2008, 2009, is that the money disappeared, right? All the private money, everybody was scared. They didn't know what was going to happen. And for apartment buildings, the only mortgages were insured mortgages. And I had some experience with insured mortgages for apartment buildings back in 2003. And I said, this is too painful. I never want to do this again. And as you guys know, their underwriting philosophy is very different, right?
Yeah.
insured mortgages. And then I started asking questions like, why is it that their evaluations come in so low? Why do they run their numbers in this way? And then the answers that I was getting were that, you know, they don't want to lose money. Well,
Yeah.
I don't want to lose money. And so I started to adapt a lot of the philosophies back in 2008. And I started to kind of, when I was buying apartment buildings, I would buy them in a way that CMHC would look at it and be able to underwrite it. And since then, I've, you know, bought properties all across Canada. And, you know, this is exactly where I want to be. And I love what I do. I have a property management company. I help people invest into real estate. So that's me in a nutshell, guys.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. I read a little bit about your, you know, your younger life and how certain things in your life changed the way you think and, you know, put you to where you are now. And, you know, sometimes when we're in those situations, we can think like how tough of a situation that is, but you wouldn't be where you're at, you know, without dealing with those. And sometimes dealing with those situations younger, like the earlier you are in life, give you the tools to be able to exceed earlier in life too. So, you know, one of the things is just don't be like upset with having to deal with situations early in life, because it might be a blessing in disguise for your older self.
Exactly what 2020 was about for a lot of people. You know, I had a very successful speaking business for the past 14 years. I've been on stages all across North America, you know, making a lot of money. And a big a big part of my multiple streams was the speaking. And that was a big stream for me. And then March 13th, 2020 came, boom, done. That business was, it disappeared like in an instant, which I always thought it was, you know, it wasn't Armageddon proof, but at least it was recession friendly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was just, you know, nobody could have ever thought that there would be a pandemic. And you know what, as that stream closed for me, I was okay. I mean, I was able to pivot and do more real estate. And what I discovered is there was different types of people during that time. There was people that were spectators. There's people that contracted during that time. And there's people that went through expansion.
Yeah.
So I'm on the expansion side, right? So it doesn't matter how many doors close. You maybe they're closed for a reason, so you can expand over here. And so that's what I would say to someone right now that's watching this, and maybe 2020, you know, because for a lot of us, 2020 has been a blessing, but maybe someone hasn't seen that yet, and they're watching this, and they're thinking to themselves, you know, I don't know. Some people keep talking about 2020 was such a blessing. I'm sitting here with my 6 restaurants and they're closed, and so. You know, my heart goes out to those people, but you have to somehow find a way to look at the silver lining, and you have to move forward. You have to move forward.
Yeah, resilience is a huge key to being able to be successful. If you are going to, you know, give up or withdraw and contract, as you mentioned, that the first sign of hardship, no matter whether it's, you know, the range of hardship. You're going to have a very tough time moving forward in business in whatever aspect it is. And I think that's definitely something that, you know, we've noticed on our end, is just being able to, you know, push through some of the difficulties that we've had or that we found growing our business. You know, there's times where it's tough, and there was times where, you know, business was low, and then there's been times now when real estate was hot, and, you know, you have to kind of push through those tough times to be able to get to the good times, or, you know, you're never going to get to the good times.
Yeah, you know, it's important to also like explain that even though, you know, you're pushing forward, it's not easy. Like when you say push forward, be positive, and try to find a silver lining, it's not like we're sitting here being like, oh yeah, it's just an easy way to deal with it. Like it's just a perspective. That's all it is. And if your perspective can change and you can push forward into finding a solution, and that's what is the difference between people who win and people who don't win.
Yeah, and I'm a big promoter of multiple streams, and you know, back in 2001, I got caught up with one stream, and so when the economy was great, I was printing money. But when the economy shifted, I wasn't equipped or ready, And the problem that I realized back in 2001 was that I only had one stream of income, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so real estate can be a really powerful and secure stream if you do it in the right way. You know, some of the people that I know that have restaurants or they're in the hotel space, or they're into some of these industries that really got impacted. The ones that were okay were the ones that had the real estate to fall back on, right? And then expand there. And so something to think about for the next crisis.
Yeah.
Right? This is not the last.
No. No.
There's always going to be something. There's always going to be something. And a lot of people, some of the things that I hear is like, oh, when all of this is over, we're gonna start, or when all of this is over, we're gonna do things or whatever. I mean, if you're waiting, you might find yourself waiting for a very long time. Yeah. Back in March, and this is timestamped, so I have a YouTube channel which I wasn't really active on, right? But back in March, I said, well, I guess this is the new thing now, and I went on there and you know, and I did a video about my thoughts on COVID-19 and what's going to happen. And back in, this is timestamp, it was March 20th. I told people, you know what? The world as you knew it is gone. Never return, right? Yep. And so the first step is to stand in your truth and just be honest. Like, that's it. That part of my life is done. And you know what? It's just like going through a divorce. It's going through, you know, at some point you have to accept and say, okay, like, that was before, that was 2019, and then now 2020, these are the new rules, right? And you know, in the NHL, they change the rules every year, but show up and play within the new rules, right? And so that's just what it was. It's like, accept that we're not going back. And I took a lot of slack for that back in March 20th of 2020, where people are like, how do you know? You're discouraging people. You know, this is just a phase. We're going to be out of this by the summer. And you know what? In my mind, I already had pivoted and I was already moving towards a new future, right? And I embraced technology and leaned into it versus resisted it. Yeah.
I think there's a few things that you said there that we could obviously really expand upon. I think just touching on that last part there is, you know, not being too comfortable and not being afraid of change and welcoming it when it comes, because, you know, being able to recognize that ahead of time and being able to make those changes while everybody else is still humming and hawing and speculating on a market. You know, no matter what you do, it's a risk. If you make the move early, it's a risk. If you make the move too late, it's a risk. But, you know, getting in early is really the best way to be able to establish a forefront in that industry. And, you know, people who are able to embrace the change are going to be able to be much more comfortable to make that decision a lot quicker and without hesitation. And then those people who are much more comfortable and are afraid of making those changes are going to be the guys that sit there and say, no, you know, now's not quite the right time. I'd like to have a little bit more of, you know, some money in my savings, or maybe I'd like to have, you know, this, you know, before I make that change. And those are the people who tend to sit there and wait too late and then come in after the market's already been, you know, taken over by the majority.
Yeah. No, go ahead. I was just it's funny Aaron says that, but right before the pandemic, I read a book by Grant Cardone, and he talked exactly about this. He talks about back in 2008, he had a business, it was great, and then, you know, 2008 happened, and he had to react. And, you know, his ability to be able to react quickly and without having to, you know, take a lot of time to think about it, saved his business and allowed him to go on. He ends up breaking down different types of people that you spoke about, people who contract and try to stay safe and just kind of ride it out, people who adapt and create new solutions. And, you know, it probably, there's definitely not a better timing that I could have had to read that book. It definitely changed my perspective on how to react to things, and especially what happened in an industry that, you know, our job is very hung up upon creating relationships with people, and those relationships are what drive our business, whether, you know, it's face to face or now digitally. being able to create these relationships and build a business around creating a feeling without having to actually meeting people is, one of the challenges that we've actually been facing. But, we're trying to find a way to digitally create emotion. And it's, it's an interesting world, but I think it's working.
Yeah.
Well, the truth is that the fact that things are changing, that is something that we need to get used to.
Mm-hmm.
For we went from the industrial era to the information era to now the knowledge era, and like the more we know, the more things are going to change. Everything's going to change, and it's going to change like from year to year, right? Like like things used to stick around for a while, right? I mean, I remember when I grew up, back in the 80s and 90s, a hit song would be around for like 2 years, right? Now it's just a moment, right? A hit song is only going to be around for however long TikTok's algorithm works, and then that's it. You know what I mean? Then there's the next hit song or whatever, and that's a sign of how everything is going to be. Education system, travel, things are going to consistently change. The monetary system, and so if every time something happens you just retreat, you're going to get further and further behind, because guess what? Everybody that's adopted to this new way of doing things is going to be ready for the next change that's going to come 2022 and 2023. And then, who knows? Like, we can all sit here and speculate, but the truth is we don't know. But one thing that I do know is that I'm going to always thrive through anything that's going to come our way. I was doing this podcast with someone, and they asked me like, "Hey, this was early in November, like, what do you think of the elections?" Well, to me, it doesn't matter who's in power, if it's Trudeau or not Trudeau, Ford, or it's really irrelevant, because one thing that I know, I'm going to win regardless, right? Whatever the new rules are, I just need to know what the rules are, and I'm going to play by the rules, the new rules, and I know I'm going to win. Whenever I'm going to, as long as I'm breathing, I'm going to be winning. And so that's the mindset that you have to adapt, moving into what I believe will be it's going to be a world that we're not even going to recognize in the next 5
years. Yeah,
100%.
I mean, you look at the car industry, and you have to be able to adapt. Things are moving to a more environment friendly type of business with the electronic cars coming in. If you're a car company and you can't adapt to the regulations and the changes of society, you're going to die, no matter what business you're in and space you occupy. If you can't adapt to the changes, whether they're positive changes moving forward, like environmental changes, or whether they're negative changes that you don't think are fair, whether or not you think they're fair or not, you have to be able to adapt to those changes and make the decisions to be able to move forward. And if you don't, your business is going to fail, no matter what type of business you're in. There isn't any business that you can get into and have one stagnant business plan and never change from that path and be successful from the day you start to the day that you retire, unless it's you're retiring because you failed. So I guess, but successful business wise, you have to be able to make the changes like that.
You have to, or you're going to be a dinosaur.
Yeah,
100%. We're seeing that in all different types, economics, finance, how people are spending money, how people are learning. Like right now, people will go on a podcast, or people will go on YouTube to try to learn something. The access to information now is so great that I think the evolution of how we're learning and how we're growing is exponentially going to expand. As you said, the next 5 years it won't be noticeable. So hopefully we're building businesses and income streams around the future and what that looks like. And it's also important to try to think about what that future looks like, and how are people going to be retaining information? How are people going to be learning or purchasing, or how are we going to get their attention? All those things haven't even been thought of yet, because that technology or that platform isn't there. But I think as long as we're pushing those boundaries and always trying to be on the cutting edge of things, that's how you kind of keep that competitive edge.
Mm-hmm. I think
what helps is to have long-term plans and long-term goals on what you want for yourself, right? I see people looking at things very short-term, right? Like, okay, in this next month, 6 months, whatever. Now it's good to break down your goals, but you really need to have a long-term vision of like what you want your life to be in 5 years. Like I'm already past the pandemic here, guys.
Oh yeah.
Right? I'm working based on my 10-year goals on
Yeah.
what I want my company to look like 10 years from today. You see, like visionaries like Elon Musk, they have 150-year goals, that the goals is the vision is so big that Elon knows that he won't even be able to be alive to even see his full vision, executed. And so that's like true expansion, because if you know exactly where you're going, you can now operate as if you already are there.
Yeah.
Right. And so today, COVID or whatever is going to come our way, it's really irrelevant, because my mind is already in 2030.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's partially a bit of like an ego response too. I mean, you have to be able to really separate, your vision versus what you're going to be able to achieve in your lifetime. If your goal is something that you're not going to be alive for, there's not. If you have a very ego-driven mindset, you're going to be very tough to achieve anywhere close to what you want if you're only focused on being able to experience that yourself. So being able to just step away from that and realize your goal is bigger than what you're going to be able to be around for. That really opens you up to be able to do a whole lot more moving forward.
Well, think about the impact, right? Think about the impact of what he's trying to accomplish, and
Sure, yeah,
like like if we start, I don't even want to get into the what real estate is gonna look like on Mars. You know what I mean?
We just talked about that.
Mars mortgages.
Yeah, Mars mortgages.
So we want to be that. I'm telling you that we will see that in our lifetime.
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh yeah.
We won't see it fully developed, but we will see that in our lifetime, and that's exciting. There's a lot of, no matter how dark it seems, no matter what the news is telling you, we are living in a better world today than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. There's less wars now than there ever was, right? But if you sit there and watch the news, you would think that, everything is falling apart or whatever, So this is why, the goals need to be, they need to expand you and your mind and the people around you, so you don't get distracted by what's going on right now.
Yeah,
100%. News is called programming for a reason. I don't. I don't disagree with that at all. I think the people you surround yourself with, we've seen it ourselves. The people you surround yourself with, people who have bigger goals, and if you aren't hanging around with people who have bigger goals than you, you're probably not hanging around with the right people. Those people will drive you and push you, and they probably been through the same stuff you've been through. The questions you're asking yourself aren't questions that are new to you. I mean, there's been thousands of generations of people who all built empires, who built super successful businesses, and who've all dealt with scaling and people management and money management and buying, taking loans out. All those things have happened. So surrounding yourself with the people who have done those things, who have larger thought processes, and who aren't going to negatively talk you down. It's sad to say, but your best friends are the people who you love the most, are sometimes the last people who are going to be able to share a post, or who are going to reach out to you for help or do those things. You can't necessarily always rely on that to help you get through. So the other people that you surround yourself with are the people who are going to drive you forward.
Some of your biggest naysayers are going to share your same last name.
Agreed.
Yeah. And it's not because they want to see you. They don't want to see you succeed. Is misery loves company, right? And people don't want to be left behind. And what if you try? What if you try and you succeed, and then that proves that they could have done that for themselves, right?
Yep.
So people just rather. It's like the crab bucket idea, right? It's like all these crabs
down.
right? So you absolutely need to get around people that are visionaries, people that are thinking big. Any people that I surround myself, no one's talking about no one's talking about things that are negative. Like I live in Ottawa, and I was driving by the apartment buildings back in the, I think it was like last September or something. And I see all these people like protesting, right? Like thousands of people protesting. And I'm like, oh my God, like what's happening? You know, it's like you want to know at least what's going on, because there was like all these signs. And then I see, and they're like, you know, we don't want to wear masks. You know what I mean? Like we you know, you're taking away our rights. You know, we're wearing these masks. And I'm like, really? You took a day off work from to fight over this? Like you tell me to wear this, I'm still gonna make $1 million. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be a millionaire like this or like this. It really doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm gonna win, right? And if you spend any energy on anything that is going against, you know, you're resisting. It's like pushing, right? Push, you get pushed back. Push, you get pushed back. You can do that for the next 5 years. By that time, we're already billionaires.
100%. You know, a lot of people. I'm not going to get into the whole like deep down the rabbit hole, but
you have strong feelings against this. I don't blame you. Like it's not like I'm not saying I'm not pro or against, right? I'm not saying that this is wrong or it's right. Yeah. What I'm saying is, what could you be doing with your time? That could serve you more in your family and the people around you, right? So
100%.
Picking and choosing, and getting too caught up in some things without, you know, and losing focus of the larger picture can be quite easy sometimes.
Yeah, what occupies your mind occupies your thoughts. What occupies your thoughts, you know, is your output and your energy and what you think and what you put in your mind. It literally creates the actions that you do in a day. So, you know, having things that, you know, anger or jealousy or whatever it may be that occupies your mind, it might not be able to align you with where you gotta go. So, you know, 100%. That's exactly right.
You know, we haven't, for people that are watching this, obviously, if they're following you, they're probably of the like mindset. You know, like you got yourselves, anybody that's following me, we have a huge advantage here, right? So we have to act, right? Like I can go from one side of the city to the other side with no traffic within like, you know, 20 minutes, right? This was impossible. Any meeting or anything that I had to do before, I would have to plan around the traffic, right? Yeah. It doesn't exist anymore, right? No. It's just like something that it's like, whoa, you know, already from March of last year to this year, I would have gone already on 6 or 7 vacations. You know, I've had all the luxury of time to be able to build my business. Mm-hmm. Think about the massive advantage. It's like we're being forced to just focus on our business and grow our businesses. So by the time, you know, whatever happens and whatever 2022 will look like, you know, the businesses are built, everything is done. Like we have this huge advantage, I feel, right? That it's like we have to, it's like we've been given the gift of time.
Yeah.
I completely.
We talk about this quite often in saying that, you know, obviously COVID was unfortunate for many people, but for us, you know, it happened at a relatively fortunate time because of the social distancing and the lockdowns and the stay-at-home orders. It, like you said, has allowed us to spend more time just focusing on growing the business. And it's like, you know, you get there, you get bored, you've been working for 12, 14, 15 hours a day. You know, like, well, what else are you going to do right now anyways? Like, you can't do anything else, so you might as well just be bored and be making money at home and growing your business versus, you know, being bored and playing video games and not doing anything, you know, to grow. And there's nothing wrong with taking time off to do that, but, you know, being strategic about it, being smart about it, and, you know, hey, what better time to grow a business and lose yourself in your business than, you know, a time when everyone's staying at home anyway. So
yeah, I think the exponential growth is a lot easier when you're fully immersed in your business and you obviously have nothing else to do but grow your business.
Yeah, and you know, like Grant Cardone says in his book, these are the times when you don't have as much competition to be able to, you know, it's much easier for you to grow. So not only do you have, exactly, yeah. you're at home more, you're spending less money, so you have more money to grow your business. There's less people competing, so the efficiency of that growth is even more because you're not competing against people, so you can grow faster during those times. So there's a lot of advantages to be focusing on your efforts on a business at a time like this.
Yeah, and here's the reality check for a lot of people. The reality is, however it's going to look like, we are going to somehow come out of this, right? We don't know what that is going to look like, but at some point we're all got to get on with our lives, right? And the question is, what are you going to look like on the other side? That's the question, right? It's like, so this is the time, and people, I mean, I have apartment buildings all across Canada, and people are like, aren't you afraid of the bubble and no, like I'm moving forward, right? I'm moving forward. Is the inaction that's gonna bite you in the behind 2022. If you're sitting there watching Netflix, I mean, watch reasonable amount of Netflix. I'm not saying don't.
It's healthy for you. Do it.
You gotta take a little bit of
What
time.
I'm saying is, like, don't just be a spectator and watch all of this money, because this is the time when money is going to change hands. We're going through the biggest wealth transfer right now and coming up, because things are going to shift. You just need to adapt, right? And so you have to be ready. You have to be there. You have to be present. You have to educate yourself. You got to get around the right people and execute, move, take action, because the inactivity is the thing that's going to come and bite you in the ass.
Yeah. Inactivity will be the death of you, 100%. And even just like staying still you're going to be so much further behind. And as you said, right now, it's the largest transfer of wealth in history. I mean, as many of you know, the government is printing unprecedented amounts of money, and that money will trickle down into the economy if it hasn't already into different avenues. And the people who are moving forward and driving forward are people who are making all the money right now. And I know a lot of people are suffering, but a lot of the entrepreneurs I know, 90% of them have 10x their businesses. Everybody I talked to who put their head down, who found a solution, who pivoted, found a way to make money during this pandemic. And I'm not saying it's easy, but the opportunity is out there as long as you look for it.
Yeah, as long as you surround yourself around the right people, as long as you're willing to see a few steps ahead, right? As long as you're willing to be logical, and as long as you're willing to stand in your truth, right? Then you'll see the massive opportunity, because these interest rates, even just interest rates, like you're going to be telling your grandkids about this.
Yes.
The question: is it true you were alive when they were giving away money? Is that true? Yeah. And your answer is going to be yes. You should have been there. It was, 1%, 1.2%. It was incredible.
Yeah.
It's coming, because that's the next one. What did you do about it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And think about the answer. What's your answer going to be? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be, no, there was COVID at the time, and so I needed to see what was going to happen, or I took massive action. I expanded during that time. And the reason why all of you guys can live the beautiful life that you live is because of the execution I did back in 2020, 2021.
Yep. I think that's a great segue, because I think from our side of the mortgage side, rates are an everyday topic for us. And in some cases, there's fair argument for rate shopping, but in some circumstances, when I take a look at some people who are doing either a flip or a burr, and you're going to be in, maybe not a flip because it's a little more profit driven, but especially a burr if you're going to be in it for 1 year. There's a lot of people who take a look and they'll have conversations about how your rates are 0.05%, and that's a fair conversation to have. But I think a lot of these people lose sight of, that's $20 a month. You're also only going to be in the mortgage for maybe 6 to 8 months. So you're not even going to be in it for the full year anyways. And then next year, or 6 to 8 months from now, when you refinance out, your rate's going to go up by an additional 50 to 75 basis points anyway. So, you know, if you're that focused on saving $20 for the 6 to 8 months that you're going to be in the property, you know, you're not, are you really focusing on that, or are you focusing on your long term, where do you want to be? And there's cases where, you know, rates are a great topic and they should be, but some situations it's more so, you know, what is the long term return on this investment? And, you know, we have this topic all the time, the cost of opportunity, getting into stuff when people are talking about private financing and the cost of private financing. And it's, yes, it is more expensive and there's definitely more fees involved up front. But, you know, what is that building going to start providing to you a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And what does that initial cost look like on the grand scheme of things when you take a look at the long-term ROI on the building?
Yeah, like keep it moving. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna fixate on little details, you're not looking at the big picture, right? You gotta keep your eye on the ball, and you know, relationships are more important than going to the next door for, you know, a few points. You know what I mean? You know what people don't know, and maybe you guys are probably too young to remember 2009, where money just disappears. Boom. Like everything just disappears from the market. Everything, like money, right? The value in Canada, we didn't really experience a crash, but there's no buy.
Yeah.
Right? So the only thing that's left is relationships. The relationships that you build. And it's like, you know what, I've been working with you, and you know what, like your mortgage broker is going to go to bat for you when it's tough. Now money is available. Everybody's giving away money.
Right.
But it's the relationship that's important, I think. And like what are we going to do? What's the plan? What's the strategy? And let's build the relationship. So when the money gets squeezed out of the marketplace or gets tougher, then we've built that relationship where all of a sudden, like, you're going to be, maybe you guys are going to be working harder to find the money, but you're going to be working harder for the people that you connected with. You're not going to be working harder for the guy that left you for a cheaper rate because it's you know, RBC is doing this and this guy's doing that. Like, you're building that relationship. That's what's important right now.
And that's the foundation of your company. We have created great relationships with so many people over the last 12 months, and we're super grateful for it. We're looking forward to seeing, obviously, where that takes us and where that takes them. And, you know, we're able to help create building stones, like stones for people to be able to build their wealth off of and build their greater vision. And, you know, we love to have a part of that. And, you know, our relationship is advantageous, you know, both ways. You know, we help them scale. Obviously, if that's expensive, you know, we understand like their goals and what they do and how they operate. And, you know, if it's a communication, I communicate differently to you than somebody would want to communicate in another way, right? So being able to figure out how they communicate, how they work, everybody works differently. So that relationship is super important. And back in 2008, obviously we weren't around doing what we're doing back then, but in March last year, I think a similar thing happened. It was
how old were you guys?
In 2008?
Yeah.
Man.
12 years ago, I was 18.
Yeah, I was like 17, 16.
That's awesome.
So in March, all the liquidity dried up. Also, so we do a ton of private money, and all of it dried up. It was like, we're taking our chips off the table. You know, we're waiting to see what happens. We don't need to put any money out. We have our loans out.
That's exactly what happened in 2008. Exactly.
Yeah. And it was a scary time.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't know like what was going to happen. People had no idea. So, you know, again, we were able to get some of these deals done, but through the relationships that we had with certain people and their trust in our abilities and their trust in what we were doing, was able to get those deals done. But other than that, you know, almost impossible to find private money at that point.
I think it's a good example of how everything cycles in real estate too. You know, we get a lot of questions of, you know, is there a bubble? Is it going to burst? And I'm like, I mean, you know, even if it was a bubble, I mean, there have been bubbles in the past and we have recovered. And real estate is a market of cycles. There's ups and there's downs, and you have to be able to adapt to your strategy as the market's moving. When the bubbles or when the market's flying up and it's red hot, you know, you're going to have a different strategy of buying. Maybe it's more short-term flips, taking advantage of fast day-over-day appreciation. And as the market starts to drop, you know, maybe you look to more of a long-term buy and hold cash flow type property. And you're, you know, keeping with the theme of the whole conversation, being able to adapt and change, but just knowing that 2008 happens, and we're in 2020, and there's still a real estate market. So, it will recover and it will come back up, and your strategy has to change as you move throughout the market flows.
Yeah. People talk about a bubble, and you know what? Like, what side are you on? Are you on the inflation side? Because I think rapid inflation is going to happen. It's more likely to happen if you look at all of the data on the right now. I would see more. It's more likely that hyperinflation happens versus a bubble bursting, right? If we when you see these, a bubble is prices rising quickly, correct?
Yeah.
I don't believe prices are rising. I think we're living through inflationary times, and the value of money is going down.
For sure.
Now there's more options for people to put their money. They can put their money in the crypto. They can put their money into gold. They can put their money into real estate. If you compare anywhere where you're going to put your money to be safe from inflation, real estate goes to the top of the list, right? It pays, if you do it right, if you buy it right, and things make sense. If you buy it, with obviously logic and reason, and the numbers make sense, that's probably a safer place for.
Completely agree. Yeah. And diversifying too. You said crypto, you said real estate, hard assets. And I've had this conversation with many people. It's like, well, stock market's all-time high. Well, maybe stock market's all-time high. Fundamentals haven't changed, and people definitely aren't investing through fundamentals. So what is it? And the government's calling a 1% inflation or 2% inflation throughout the year, and everybody knows that's a lot. Like, you can see the prices and everything. Bananas you bought 12 months ago are twice as much later.
When the government's writing, what people don't understand is that there's a lag, right? Like, I went on the CMHC website and I looked at cap rates for Ottawa, 4%. I call bullshit. You know what I mean? It's more like 2%.
Yeah.
The GTA, they say it's 2% cap rates. What? The GTA is more like 0.5% cap rate,
yep.
Right? So when they wrote this, it was like, I don't know what they were doing. You know what I mean? But it's like they're not truly up to date because things are shifting quickly, right? And so when people talk about a bubble, it's not the same bubble that we saw back in 2007, that 2008, where the monetary system was relatively safe. The inflation rate was still 3% per year or whatnot. Where now I think by the time they're done all all of the things that they have to do, I think we're going to come to the conclusion that, wait a minute, inflation is actually higher than 3%.
Right?
Yeah. Wood. Go buy some wood.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's crazy.
100%. Yeah.
It's crazy. For people who aren't financially literate, it's going to be a decently difficult time because they don't understand how their money devaluates over time. But for people who are financially literate and understand how economics work, it's very easy to see how inflation is going to create a large divide in people who have assets versus people who don't. And many people have been speaking about it since I was a kid, how the divide and how the middle class is going to get squished out. And it's a sad truth between the people who are financially literate, who understand how money works and how assets work, versus people who don't have access to the ability to even understand that. And the trust in fiat currency is going to be something that's going to be written in history books after this. I think a lot of people are understanding that what you do and what you get paid per hour is in a dollar that can get printed to infinity. And your trust in that dollar is strictly that. It's a trust in the government that you have, that dollar is going to be worth the exact same thing tomorrow. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. So it's really going to be interesting to see the paradigm shift in how people think about money, how people are going to be using money. Our whole job is around moving money for people and figuring out assets and leverage. And I'm really excited and a little bit scared, but decently excited about seeing what's going to happen in the short to medium term in regards to, you know, currency in general?
Well, like I told you before, it doesn't matter what happens. I'm going to win,
I love it.
You
right?
gotta have the mindset moving forward.
No matter what happens, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you go back to 1944, right? If you guys, you know, and specifically the people that are watching this right now, go back to 1944. You know, type in monetary system 1944. This is when they reset the system. The current monetary system that we all are subscribed to right now today, it came from a reset back in 1944.
Mhm.
And you know, this is good. Like it's not like it's not like, oh, this can't happen or ever again. You know, it's, you know, the world is changing. Human behavior is changing. There's people right now that are in the Dominican Republic that are working their job every single day right here in Canada.
Yep.
Think
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
That is changing the way we're going to do everything, right? And you know, there was, you know, every country had their reserve, has their reserve, you know, their central bank, right? But when it becomes a world, is that even going to be relevant? You know, if I figured out how to make money and live in Thailand, you know, from, you know, and this is not, we're not talking about, you know, the dream. I can still, we're talking about the day-to-day, the person that went to college, that now it has a job. That job doesn't look the same. They
No.
can live anywhere in the world, right? Anywhere in the world, and still, you know, make a living, make a real living. And so that's going to change how we do things. This is why cryptocurrency, I think, you know, it's going to be very relevant. Is it going to be Bitcoin? I don't know. You know what I mean? You know, these are the things that we don't know. I'm excited to know. I'm excited, but this is what I do know. It doesn't matter what happens.
I'm gonna win.
People still have to pay the rent.
Yep.
Right? And if people still have to pay the rent, if the new currency was chickens, well, they could pay the rent.
Chickens, let's go.
It doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna win.
I love it. The constant push forward. You know, Aaron and I see a lot of that. You know, we try our best to try to stay positive and just push forward. And there's always a solution. You know, we specifically build our business around solutions. You know, we talk about this all the time, but you know, there's a lot of options in the market, and those options are all given by the banks. Most brokers are the exact same, but the solutions that we're able to provide are bespoke solutions. And you know, our whole business is around creating those solutions for clients. And I love the mentality of it because, you know, at the end of the day, when you work for yourself, your whole job is to find a solution. You know, you're gonna get sent 10 different things in a day, and you're gonna get a brainstorm at least 5 of them, and you're gonna have to make a decision very quickly and live with that decision and move forward. So one of the largest things or most important things that I found out this year is just being able to make decisions quickly and effectively is the most important thing in business you could possibly do.
And stick to it.
Stick to it. Yeah.
Like you know, people make decisions quickly, but then they change their mind just as quick. And you have to see some things through, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the apartment building space. You know, you gotta think long term. I mean, just to get out of a commercial mortgage, it's expensive. So, you know, once you make that commitment, like, you know, you got to stick with it. I mean, you got to, you know, and if for whatever reason you made a mistake, one of the things that I love about real estate is that it's the only business that time will erase your mistake, right?
Yeah.
There's no other business like that, right? And so that's what I love about real estate. It's like, okay, it's long term, right? It's not like people that have their money in the stock market, God bless them. I don't know how you sleep at night. You know what I mean? So much, it's the volatility of it, right? And you know, like all of these other ways of making money, which are great, just it's not my forte, right? I'm a real estate guy, you know, and I understand how economics works, right? I did not take economics in school. I didn't, you know, when I was in school, they couldn't even tell me what a mortgage was. So how can I even learn anything in school? I got the education for myself. And, you know, when people start talking about these things because they talked about it back in early 2000s and 2008. You know, this is like, I've been through this before, you know, and when people start talking about inflation, what most people don't realize is that governments actually need inflation. If you're $50 trillion in debt, it's easy to go from 50 trillion to 100 trillion at 0% interest. That's easy.
Yeah.
That's easy, right? I mean, would you borrow a 50 trillion at 0%?
Of course. Yeah. Free money.
That's easy, right? And so if we hit rapid inflation and that 50 or 100 trillion now looks more like 10 trillion, right, in value, they win. This is how you get out of debt. Right? Or if you have to reset the monetary system, it's wiped clean.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, like, okay, sorry, like, you know, it's all imaginary anyways. It's fiat.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the only, like, you think, how in the world are we going to get out of this? You know, all of these countries taking all this debt, paying all of their citizens. They're probably going to have to continue to pay them for the next 2 years.
Well, that's funny. Funny you said that. Universal basic income was just talked about and passed in a liberal committee today. I think it was today or yesterday. They're going to table it. One of the things they want to do is create. It was like yesterday or today. The liberal government came out and said that one of the main things that they want to push for in the short term is universal basic income for Canadians. And I personally don't think that is the way. I think it's a very socialist mindset. I don't believe that our country needs any more safety nets than we already have. But you know, it's an interesting thought into where our country is going, or where North America in general is going to be going. It's,
you know what, we don't produce anything anyways, right? Like,
you know, we're consumers.
I mean, how are you going to keep all these citizens, you know, going? I mean, it's imaginary. The money's imaginary anyways, right? And because everybody's looking for the money, you know what I mean? If they were giving away assets, I'd have I would be like, whoa, guys, you know what I mean? But like fiat currency, they just need that to circulate. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, I don't know where that's going to lead. I don't really have an opinion on it because I just, you know, I don't look for money, as you guys know. Yeah. I look for.
I think just read the fine print and really understand what comes with accepting that universal basic income. You know, I think there's some talk about, you know, potentially losing the ability to own assets and whether you forego that. So I mean, just understanding what the fine print is on you know, the universal basic income and any type of form of government basic income like that. Just knowing what comes with it.
Basically, at the end of the day, if you can't own assets, the hell am I? Why am I here?
Yeah.
Right. So that I'm okay. You know, we're in a global world, right? Like we're in a world that is small now, right? Wherever they're allowing me to own assets, that's where I'm going to go. That's where I'm going to take my wealth.
No, I completely agree. You know, we live in a very interesting time. There's never been more opportunity on the planet than right now to be able to build wealth, you know, for yourself, for your family, for generational wealth, to leave a legacy behind. It's really exciting to see where things are going, for sure.
Well, you know what? I definitely didn't hear about that universal basic income, but you know, I don't know. Is that going to make people happy?
They're
still going to.
Sure, maybe.
I think it goes. We start going down a whole like slippery slope into politics, but it's definitely an interesting spin on what's currently happening. It probably is a good indicator as to how many people are currently on government subsidy, and what that's doing to the economy. I don't know if being Canadian should be a God-given right to have a basic income for not doing anything, but you know, I have probably a different idea of what monetary policy should be than most.
As long as you allow me to buy real estate.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
You know, I'm good, right? I'm good, and you know, like I said, I don't think I would resist it much, right? If that's what they want to do. Somebody somebody, just like in my company, I always, I bring in the smartest people to do our numbers. Somebody out there should be able to do the math.
Yeah.
Guys, I don't know. I don't.
Well, it's your tax dollars, so. I mean,
What's that?
It's your tax dollars. It's our tax dollars. We're going to pay for it.
You know what? They're going to tax the universal income.
Yeah.
So the
It's self-sufficient at that point,
it's
right?
just a cycle of taxes. You're washing money from the government.
You know what? At the end of the day, as you guys know, I'm going to win.
I love it. Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on. We would love to have another talk. Maybe have you come and talk to our agents. We have a growing team, so when everything opens up or whatever works out, we really appreciate having you on. It was a great talk.
You guys are awesome. You guys are doing big things. I have definitely seen what you have been doing. You should be proud of yourselves. And
Thank you.
You are the type of people that definitely expanded during this time.
Yeah, we
agree. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it, man. The hard work probably can't be put into words. I mean, you obviously understand what it takes to open a company and to run things, but it does pay off, guys. The 16-hour days, the sacrifices you need to make, expand at all costs. There is no other option.
And that will be the difference when everybody's getting their money check, and the people that they're like, what do I want that for? You know what I mean? And they're the people that take action. Those are the people that are going to win.
Yep.
Completely agree.
100%. No one's going to want to do it when you can get back out there and you can be sitting on the patios and day drinking and going back to normal life. That everyone's going to want to be out there doing that. So take advantage of it now while you don't have anything else to do.
Grind.
100%.
Grinded, love it. Well, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Go enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We hope you have a fantastic week coming up, and hopefully let's do this again soon.
Hey guys, you guys are awesome. We'll see you at the top.
Yeah, see you at the top, buddy. All right, guys, take care.